This session is about evaluating your values. It's the value of a comprehensive current delinquent tax collection program, the property value study appeals and audits, and a homestead exemption audit. This is a little bit over a 30-minute presentation and is really just an overview of these issues, but this is all about bringing in revenue, additional revenue, and maximizing the revenue that you have for your local school districts. Let me introduce myself. I'm Jim Lambeth with the Linebarger Law Firm, and I want to also introduce with us also is Staci Killingsworth, an attorney with the Linebarger Law Firm, and James E. Wilcox, Superintendent of Longview ISD. Dr. Wilcox, you want to help these good folks understand a little bit about what we're trying to hit on our presentation today.
Well, what we're trying to present is that there is additional revenue out there that you may recapture for your district. We get our property value study and think that we're set, and that's what our revenue will be based on for the upcoming year. But if you take advantage of some of the audits that are available through Linebarger, you could significantly, possibly increase your revenue for the upcoming year.
So let's talk a little bit about current collections and what a current collection program is. Most of you all have a contract with your county tax assessor collector or with your appraisal district to collect your current taxes. So just a few things, sort of a 30,000-foot view of what you as a school district administrator, a superintendent or business manager or chief executive or chief financial officer can do. First is have a relationship with that tax assessor collector and talk to that tax assessor collector about how things are going in their office. That tax assessor collector has available to them several areas of education and training. Promote that area, that education and training, and promote their staff in getting that education and training. Their key staff members and mid-management all need to have the ability to get the certifications that they need to help them do the best possible job. So if you have a tax assessor collector, at a minimum, his office is able to get a PCC, professional collector certification. Their chief deputy can get the PCDAC certification, and the tax collector can get the PCAC, professional collector assessor certification. If they're under TDLR and they are either an appraisal district or an in-house ISD or city tax collector, then they may get their TDLR certification. And the tax assessor collector, the top person, should at least have a registered professional tax assessor collector certification. Their mid-management can have registered professional tax assessor or registered professional tax collector certification. All of those are areas that show that they have completed some certification work, they have completed education and training, and this gives you the best opportunity to be able to have a tax office that has certification and training. In addition, there's good continuing education and all of those things that go with it. And then finally, there's IAAO certification for appraisal districts. That's the International Association of Assessing Officers. All of those are good areas and sources for them to get training among their peers in the areas that are relevant for tax collection. Next would be a good software program. We live and die by our software. That software provider should have experience. They should have data safety. You can look at levels of certification that they have in the areas of safety and storage safety, password safety, firewall safety. And then most importantly is that they have a succession plan, not only for continuing business in the event of an outage, but also a business continuity plan that is available so that the prime individuals that are involved in that software, that whenever they have decided to retire or leave the software business, that they have in place somebody to take over and can also understand the architecture of that software. All of those are good things to know about their software provider. Then finally, they need to have good data, frequent updates from the CAD, work return mail, have CAD updates and address changes available to them so that whenever they do consistent mailing and additional mailings, that those mailings are going to the right places. Some kind of a skip trace vendor to look for return mail, and they can often get much of that from their delinquent tax collection firm. Staci, do you want to talk a little bit about delinquent tax collection and how that affects revenue with the school districts?
I would love to. Thanks, Jim. Delinquent tax collection is another area that you can work very thoroughly and very hard to make sure that you are maximizing your revenue for your schools and your other taxing entities. And there's many different factors to that that are very important. One of the factors that's going to be very important to that is having good management. It's all about having the right people in the right positions that have experience and in the key areas that are necessary to do these proper delinquent collections. You want your management to have knowledge about your location and the tax space that they're currently working in, the tax roll. You want the management to have good insight into the big picture and someone who is really open to the technology. As Jim talked about, we live and breathe by technology now, and it's really important that management be open to the new, ever-changing and evolving technology that's necessary in this delinquent tax collection. It's also important, as I mentioned, that your management and all of your staff have a variety of experience. You want someone who knows what it means to work a tax roll and knows what it means to work with the taxpayers in the area where they're working. It's also important to have a lot of diversity on your staff that's working on your delinquent tax collection. You want to make sure that when taxpayers are calling in, that you have people who can handle those tax calls and handle different types of people that are calling in. You want to address each taxpayer in a way that they can understand and in a way that they can communicate. It's also important to have lots of locations that you operate under. You want to be able to work the cases locally. We have offices all over where our ISDs are located so that there is someone close by who knows the area, who is very familiar with the tax roll. They're very familiar with the taxpayers and are also probably familiar with the tax sale buyers that come and purchase the property. We think that it's very important to do it that way, and it's effective to have someone that's just familiar with everything about the role that they're working. It's nice to have someone who's, for example, in Longview working it and not having everything have to go to Amarillo or to Austin for approval. The technology for the delinquent tax collections is paramount. You must have up-to-date technology, and whoever does your delinquent tax collections must be able to communicate through technology with the tax office. They have to be able to communicate, and data has to flow from the tax office to the delinquent tax collector's office. The technology has to be available to follow and track every lawsuit that's filed. We live in a world that is driven by technology, and you need a firm that is able to keep up with that and adapt and keep everything in an orderly fashion in the technology that it's given to us in. Something else that's very important is the staffing levels. Whoever is working on your delinquent accounts, you need to make sure that they have the right amount of people working on your accounts. You need enough people to be able to handle the volume of the phone calls, enough people to be able to work through the delinquent tax roll that you have. You need to be effective and efficient with the staff that you have to address all of the needs of the different clients. Our staffing has been very successful in meeting the needs of our clients. When we took over the collections for the ISDs at the Van Zant County Appraisal District, we were able to achieve a 2.18% increase on the TEA numbers, and we were thrilled to be able to give those clients that additional revenue coming in. When we took over Longview ISD's collections, we were also able to give them a large increase in their collections. I think Dr. Wilcox has those numbers to tell us about.
Well, the first year that we did the delinquent tax audit, we found that we received an additional $260,000 the first year. That's a 27% increase over our normal delinquent tax collection. And as any of us all will attest to, every dollar is a benefit to provide the education that we need to allocate to all of our students. So it was a win for us.
It was definitely exciting to see those numbers for sure. Something else that Jim mentioned previously on the current collections is also applicable to the delinquent collections, and that would be skip trace address searching. Society is very mobile today. There's not too many people that stay in one place. And so it's very important that the delinquent tax collection includes a program to look for address info and to continually search for new addresses. There might be a situs on a piece of property that's valid, but they might not get their mail there. They might get their mail at a PO box. There might be a resident at a physical home that went to a nursing home. There might be someone that's working remotely, that's a nurse working remotely throughout COVID periods, or oil field workers that are working out in West Texas. There's a lot of different reasons why you need to continue to search for people, but it's very productive to have good skip tracing. Something else that's important is to have a national bankruptcy presence. We have offices in 23 states. And so if a taxpayer files bankruptcy, it does not matter where they file it. We have someone local who can address that bankruptcy and can appear and file the claim necessary to protect the interest in the delinquent collections. It's also important to have a staff that specializes in litigation, that stays on top of all of the recent court rulings and keeps us abreast of all of the changes that come about in litigation, and that can be very helpful. Something else that's very important about staffing is to have specialized staff that can work business, personal, property roles. Those are very different than the real property, and it is wonderful. And we have people that specifically work those roles, and that can be another steady stream of revenue that can come into the entities and to the ISDs. We also have staff that specifically works on appellate law. If something needs to be appealed at the district court level, it can be appealed up, and we have a department that works specifically on that. We also have a mineral department. It is actually based out of Northeast Texas that specifically works the mineral rolls in Texas. And it looks at the whole state's role, and its whole job in that division is just to collect on minerals. And it's very specialized and a very productive department. We also have property value study and property value audit staff. That's all they do. And so they work directly on those items that help generate a lot of revenue and increased money coming in for the school districts. We have attorneys who have specific knowledge with appraisal districts and appraisals, and all of that works together on the delinquent program to increase revenue. And I know I addressed it before, but one of the most important things that we see in any delinquent collection program is to have local knowledge. I don't think we can say that enough. To have someone who is from your area, who knows the properties, who knows the tax roll, and who knows the taxpayers is really invaluable and works to really help improve the collections. And that local knowledge is just something that you can't replace with anything else. Jim, what are you seeing currently with collections at the tax offices?
Currently right now, and we get asked this question a lot. I think there's a lot of question about the economy as a whole and what are tax rolls doing. We are seeing delinquent collections running at 100 to 112% of previous years. So that means our delinquent collections are up, and that's as a whole overall across North and East Texas and South and East Texas. So I think that's probably also very representative of other districts out in West and South Central Texas, as I've talked to some of my other colleagues out there. Current collections, as I talked to tax assessor collectors, they are running 1% and 2% higher year to date at the end of December than they were the previous year. So all of that is to say, it looks like we're going to end 2020 very good. Looks like we're going to roll into 2021 very good. Now, that doesn't mean that there won't be some kind of an economic problem between now and then, but right now it seems like people are taking care of their business, using whatever extra dollars they might have to pay their property taxes. And so right now it looks like steady as we go, collections are coming in on time and on track. Let's talk a little bit about the property value study. So from a 30,000 foot level, what we want you to take away from this is that there are some very specific timelines that you need to understand about the property value study that you need to do to meet your needs in your area. The second is there are two different areas in which we can regain some money for you. One is if we have a property value study appeal because you have been assigned state value, or if you in any district where you have losses in value after the rolls have been certified, you may be benefit from a property value audit. So let's talk about property value studies and property value study appeals and property value study audits. So if we divide the world into those two terms, the property value study first comes about because the legislature created in the government code 403.302. And it's there to ensure equitable distribution of state funding for public education. It has a secondary purpose too, and that is to collect data to provide taxpayers, school districts, and CADs and the legislature with a way of measuring a specific or each individual appraisal district's performance. So it has two parts. Most important part for you all is that it is a part of your funding mechanism. Now, it's required that the comptroller's office go in and every 2 years look at total taxable values of all properties in each school district. The property value study takes only samples of properties in each category, dividing the world of property up into many categories. It only takes samples of those properties to look at them. So it doesn't look at every property within your district. It just looks at a sample within each category. The property value study applies sales data, market data, all of the appraisal data of income, market, or sales to try to gather information about what properties are worth, and then applies that to the ground data that an appraisal district has. That is the property in good condition, poor conditions, what are the other attributes that that property might have. Now, the study is done for every school district in every county. So if a school district has multiple goes into or overlaps into multiple counties, you will have multiple studies. So you have one study for every county in which your school district sits in. Now the study is scheduled for every other year. Opposite years, the appraisal district will have a MAPS review. So when in years where you have a property value study, you will not have a MAPS review. In years where you have a MAPS review, you will not have a property value study unless the appraisal district fails one of those. So it's going to be in alternating years per county, but if the property value study is failed by the appraisal district and state value is assigned or applied, you're going to have a study every year. So once you get into trouble with the PVS, you're going to end up having a study every year until you pass that property value study. Now, the effects of the property value study is the important part. And the bottom line here is you can lose money. And so here's how it works. If you're a Chapter 42 school district, you're a property value poor district. If you fail, state aid is reduced by the amount assigned, less the value that the CAD says is your local value. Plug that into your TEA template and you'll see how many dollars you actually lose in state aid. Very similarly, if you're a Chapter 41 district, your property value rich district, if you fail that property value study, state recapture will rise by the amount that the state says your value should be, less the amount that the CAD actually billed on or the CAD actually certified on. Plug that into your TEA template and that'll tell you how much that district would lose. Good example is this. We took a real school district, we used some numbers. Now we gave it a PVS amount of $4,095,000 in value, and that's what the state says it's worth, or actually that's what the local appraisal district says it's worth. If the state comes in with the property value study and assigns state value at $4,500,000, it's going to be a value difference of $405 million. Now, if we plug that into their template for that district, we're going to call it XISD. That district is going to lose $4,186,500 in state aid that would be due them due to the 2020 PVS being failed. That's how much money they would lose for that year. And that's what happens when a property value study is failed. The state says your values are higher. Your local district says that they're lower. The local district certifies, tax bills are sent out this difference, and the gap between the two is where the state says, no, you're not going to get that much in state aid. Now, if you fail a property value study, several things can happen. First is years of grace. It's allowed if for the 2 previous property value studies, your local value was valid. If the state came in and validated it in the past, then you'll get at least the first year of grace. It's allowed if the CAD values are less than 10% out of the state's margin of error. So if you're greater than 10% out, you could be applied state value from the very first year. It is not allowed of a CAD that failed the most recent MAPS review. So this is why you need to know what your appraisal district last year on the MAPS review, because it will tell you whether you can get grace for the first year in your property value study, or whether you will go immediately to state values. Year 1, local value got assigned, a new PVS will be conducted every year. If in year 2, local value gets assigned, a new PVS will be conducted each year and will fail again with no more grace. And then on the 3rd year, state value will be assigned if for the 3rd year you fail the property value study. Now, the dates are very, very important. And the reason why the dates for the property value study are so important is because the time frame is so narrow to get an appeal done. First of all, the PVS is conducted throughout the year. It's going to be conducted mostly in the summer and fall months, but it comes out on the 31st day of January. This year, the 31st is going to be on a Sunday, so it's going to come out on February 1st, 2021 on a Monday. When that comes out, you have exactly 40 calendar days after the state certifies those values to file an appeal, roughly March 13th. Only the ISD has the right to the appeal. So you as the ISD are in control of this process. The CAD does not have a right to appeal a state assignment of property value. The CAD can, with authorization from the ISD, conduct that appeal. The ISD may also contract with an authorized outside vendor to conduct the appeal. That is where you may contract with outside attorneys or any other outside appeal. As far as I know, there are only about 3 or 4 firms that do this. Linebarger is one of them. Timing is crucial. All objections and evidence have to be gathered and put into that appeal and filed by March 13th. So 1,200 school districts throughout the state of Texas, and everybody has to get their appeals in by March 13th. If only a quarter of the districts in the state of Texas have failed the property value study appeal, then just imagine the number of appeals that have to be completed in that 140-day window. Contracts for the services of outside firms need to be in place well before there's a property value study problem. So again, with over 1,200 school districts, imagine just about half of them are studied each year. Imagine how many and how short a period of time it is to get a property value study appeal done. Dr. Wilcox, do you have any words of wisdom for superintendents and CFOs out there?
Well, I think that what we have to be mindful of is that forewarned is forearmed. And so in Longview ISD, we make this a part of our annual budget preparation. That is, this is something that we undertake in the summer when we are doing our budget for the next school year. You have to be also aware of the fact that all of this is put in place by government. And governments always like things to run the way they want them to. And so everything is in their favor, like the 40-day window. So during the summer, you need to already have this authorized. You need to have a contract with the firm that you want to conduct your appeal. And remember that that can't happen up in the middle of the year. You have to have this in place well beforehand if you want to be on the safe side here. So our recommendation is that this should be part of your regular budget process. And this is something that should be in place well before the deadlines.
Kind of reminds me of the Gladewater Rodeo. Cowboy, get it on your mind. So let's talk a little bit about property value audits. These go along with the property value study. This is the second part of the revenue or lack of revenue from the property value study. A self-report can be conducted. And what a self-report is basically, it is a report to TEA and to the comptroller's office of a loss of value throughout the year. Every tax roll has loss in value due to late filed homesteads, late filed ag exemptions, late filed charity exemptions, late filed religious exemptions, and so on. This loss in value may also occur from a lawsuit that's settled or an ARV reduction in value. It may be requested by the school district or the Commissioner of Education, or if authorized by the CAD or an outside vendor. So the mechanism is the CAD can do it for you or an outside vendor can do it for you. In larger districts, the CAD often does it. But one thing I will warn is you need to be careful, make sure that the CAD has individuals who are well trained in doing a property value audit so that you get the benefit of all of the reductions in value. You may file a property value study audit up to 3 years, within 3 years of the date the state certified the final numbers to the TEA. So generally you have a 3-year cutoff. You may file 3 of those audits within that 3-year period. In other words, you may do one this year, one next year, and one the 3rd year. Now, the filings may be extended if there has been litigation that has caused a property roll supplement to occur for a reduction in value. And you have 1 year from the time that that local tax roll supplement has actually been made to the tax rolls. Be careful, there are problems gathering data. You need to be knowledgeable about how to gather that data. You need to have experience with filing property value audits. You do not want to file an audit if you have an increase in value. You merely want to file an audit when you have a decrease in value. It's a great deal of state aid at stake, and also interest may be paid out on refunds reimbursed through special filings. Staci, you want to tell everyone what was able to be captured for Kilgore ISD in the recapture of interest paid on those compressor suits?
Yes, Kilgore ISD, like many school districts across the state, was greatly impacted by the compressor litigation that has happened over the last several years. And to work with Kilgore ISD on that, we filed a property value study, and it has been filed, and we expect Kilgore ISD